Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have some pretty exciting content around procurement and utilizing purchase requisitions inside of AX 2012, as well as procurement categories and how to set those up and how to utilize those. It is my pleasure to introduce Laura, who's going to be our presenter for today. I'll give you a little bit more feedback on her and kind of what her background is in just a second. I do want to go ahead and introduce EBEX a little bit since we've got a lot of people on the line. Just make sure everybody understands who we are. So EBEX, we're a global gold certified partner. We have been for a very long time. We're very well respected in the Microsoft world. We just won Inner Circle for the 5th year in a row. And for those of you who understand Inner Circle, it's given to the top 2% of partners globally. So it's a very big honor. It shows how committed we are to the Microsoft Dynamics brand and Microsoft in general. We've also won awards such as Global Partner of the Year, which is really great for us because it kind of speaks to our global presence, not just our U.S. presence or our U.K. presence, but how we're winning global deals and we're able to go all the way from small businesses to global large enterprise businesses. WPC, the World Partner Conference, was last week, and we also just won Reseller of the Year again for 2015, and again Inner Circle for 2015. So again, you can just see kind of how much of a presence we have in the Microsoft world and how committed we are to Dynamics. At EBEX, people are core to who we are. We are, focused on delivering high-quality projects, and to do that, we have to have extremely good people. So we're committed to our people. We train them. We have training plans for every single one. They're Microsoft certified in all of the certifications you can get around Dynamics. And we have a very healthy intake program to make sure we keep bringing in new talent. Just a little bit of a focus on EBEX in the U.S. So EBEX US, we're actually headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Laura and I are sitting in our offices today. In the U.S., we focus on AX and BI. From an AX point of view, we've grown significantly over the past few years. We focus on manufacturing. Within manufacturing, lean manufacturing, process manufacturing, discrete manufacturing, and project manufacturing. We also focus on distribution and the service industry. From a BI point of view, we have a BI practice here as well. It can implement everything from your traditional SQL, Microsoft BI stack with data warehouses, etc., to AX role centers and dashboards. They're also heavily into Power BI. We actually have a new rapid return data modeler that we're going to be launching here soon that helps integrate Power BI with the AX AOT. So that's pretty exciting. And then, of course, we do focus on some third-party BI products such as Atlas, Zap, Halo, Tableau, those types of things. Okay, so today we have Laura Tipper, one of our senior AX consultants. Laura has an interesting background. She actually came from a customer just like you guys, where she implemented AX 2012, and a lot of the functionality that you're going to be seeing today, she's been there, done that as a customer implementing it in AX. She's been in the industry for 29 years, so she's got a lot of experience that she'll talk to you today, and if you have questions, always feel free to reach out to her. Besides that, I'll be your moderator, so if you guys have questions, please use the GoToWebinar feature called Questions. I'll be looking at it, getting you answers if I can. If not, we're going to have a question and answer time at the very end. I'm going to keep you all on mute just to make sure that we don't have noise, feedback, and that kind of thing. But at the end, if we have time, I'll unmute you all and you can openly ask questions as well. But if we don't have time, use that questions feature and we'll make sure we get back to you. All right, without further ado, I'm going to quickly switch over some of the audio, so bear with us, and we'll let Laura kick off.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Everybody should be able to see my screen here. I've got a few slides to go through, and I'm going to actually do this in reverse order from the title on the presentation. And we're going to start out with going through the procurement categories, the features and capabilities of them, how you go ahead and set them up. There's a lot of different optional ways in which you can set them up. Charlotte says we're not seeing my screen, so let's see. Can you drag it? I don't know why it isn't working. Let's do that. Try it. Two secs, everyone. I love technology. It's going to be a very dull presentation if you don't get this. Try it on that. Okay, took its time. All right, so thank you. So we'll go through how to set up procurement categories. There are lots of different optional things you can do with procurement categories, and then I'm going to actually do most of this presentation actually is a demonstration. So I'll demonstrate the setup, both the mandatory bits and the optional things. Then we'll move into purchase requisitions, features of those, how you set up the purchase requisition functionality, all the mandatory and optional things you can do there. And then I'll show how you can bring those two kinds of things together, the procurement categories and the purchase requisitions, to create purchase recs, both in the client and in Enterprise Portal. A lot of the capabilities that come with the procurement categories really play out into Enterprise Portal. And then hopefully we'll have time for questions. Okay, so carry on to this. One of the really interesting features of procurement categories is that if you want to purchase things that you don't need to go into your production cycle, so they don't need to be tracked, or you don't need any sort of automated purchasing set up for them, you just want to buy them, then you can purchase against a procurement category. A lot of companies use this for things like consumables, health and safety, maybe training activities, IT. So they don't come into stock. You don't have to create them in AX as a released product. But you can, so the user can just request them by picking a category and typing in what they want, maybe putting in a URL or something like that. So that gives you a lot of flexibility and not overloading your inventory with lots of unnecessary things. You can create the procurement category hierarchy either manually, or if you use some sort of industry standard list, I've listed some of them here, you can import that or part of that, or use it as a starting point for your procurement category. So lots of flexibility there on how you create it. And then, of course, the big thing about procurement categories is that you can combine it with other features in AX in order to increase sort of your capabilities, your flexibility, how you control what people can do and not do within the purchasing module. And a lot of that's what we'll talk about today. All right, so if we start here at the top, this is kind of how I've got procurement category here in the center and then showing how it adds with the other bits and pieces in AX in order to give you different capabilities. So starting at the top, you can set up what's called the procurement catalog. Again, you don't have to, but you can, and that allows you to use the enterprise portal, employee services capability, and find products, search for them, and use what's called attribute filters for people to just sort down and filter for the products they might want to purchase and create purchase recs for within Enterprise Portal. We'll see a lot more of all these things I'll demonstrate for you later, so I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a high level at this point. Moving around to the right, we've got purchasing policy rules, and this is where you can set up on a procurement category basis who can do what purchasing by category. You can set up things like whether the invoice matching is 2- or 3-way by category, and control what vendors a user can select when they're filling out a purchase requisition. For each procurement category, you can go ahead and add products. So if you have released products set up in your system, you can categorize them by procurement category. That gives you the ability to search for them and find them by category instead of having seen this massive list altogether. You can provide attributes by category, so maybe things like brand, weight, warranty, anything you can think of, screen size, whatever. And then those attributes can be used within the catalog, if you've got one set up, to provide that filtering capability. So if you wanted everything that was weighed less than 2 pounds, you got that capability to filter on that in the catalog. Moving around to the left again, you can set up ledger posting profiles. If you want to track your costs by category, you can go ahead and set up a posting profile in that manner. And then the other thing you can do is add vendors to categories. So again, then when you're looking at the vendors in Enterprise Portal or within the client, the vendors are sorted by the category, and you can also then assign them to a status of whether they're approved or preferred, and then again tie that back into purchasing policies if you like, and allow users to either use vendors that are approved, preferred, some combination thereof. Okay, so that all these things sort of come all together and give you lots of flexibility. So procurement category set up, generally this is the order in which I would recommend people set up the capabilities. You see I've got optional on lots of them, so you don't have to do all of them, but you do have to at least create the hierarchy and assign it to the type called procurement hierarchy. There's some configuration you do have to do to the procurement category, and then from there it's kind of what you want to pick and choose. You can do the catalog, like I said. If you want to control within your purchasing policies at a level below your company, like maybe via a cost center or business unit, you can set up an organization hierarchy so that the control is actually at a lower level. And then, like I said, you can do the posting profiles as well. So that's generally where you'd want to go in if you were setting them up, but you could leave out some of these optional steps along the way and still do the ones after it. They're not all dependent on each other in that order. Okay, so what I've got slides on here, if we go back to here, I've got a slide on each one of these, but we're not really going to talk about the slides. It's kind of just there for reference for you if you get the slides after, because what I'm going to do really is I'm going to just work through each of these slides in a system. So let me just move over to my environment here. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create a hierarchy. Now the hierarchy is actually created within product information management, nothing to do with procurement, because you can create a number of different types of hierarchies within the system for sales and retail and things like that. So over here in product information management under setup, I go ahead and I would select the category hierarchies. You can see there's a number of them set up in my demo system here. But what you would do is you would just go up to create a new hierarchy, give it whatever name you wanted for, webinar, can't spell, webinar, whatever. And you would just go ahead and click New Node. This node now is the top of your hierarchy list, so you might just want to call it categories. And then you can just start building your whole hierarchy from here. Wherever you have selected here in the left side, it will make a subnode, you'll see this is capability that kind of exists in some other places in AX where you can build hierarchical structures. So if I wanted something under new category, I would do another one like that. If I wanted one at the same level as new category, I'd select categories and create it that way. So you can see how you build out the hierarchy this way. I'm going to talk more about all these different fast tabs that come up here, but I'm going to do that actually in a category that I've already set up. So I'm going to close this one up. That's just a little bit about how you would build this. All right. And then I'm going to actually go to my procurement office supplies here that I've set up in support of this demo. So what you've got here over on the left, of course, is your whole structure, and you can open up the different bits and pieces. You can see payroll's got a big old little stop sign kind of thing here on it. That's because payroll category has been inactivated, and I could activate it again if I want. So you can set this up, and if you have some reason why maybe a category wasn't going to be used for a period of time, or you're playing with something, you can go ahead and inactivate a category or a part of your hierarchy. Okay, so over here on the right, you've got other bits and pieces you can fill in for your hierarchy. I kind of recommend building your hierarchy first and then coming back and filling all this information in, partly because it's not really easy to move things around over here, so getting the structure built out right and then coming back and filling in the details is probably the best way to go. A lot of people don't fill in a lot of these, but like the friendly name, that's the name that shows up in the enterprise portal as your hierarchy name. So if you want something that reads a little bit nicer than maybe what you might have set up here, I would use the friendly name. Okay, then we have category attributes. So at a category level, you can see I've got equipment rentals selected here. You can define an attribute for the category, and it's usually typically something like the category owner. So somebody would know who they would want to talk to if they wanted maybe something added to that category. And we'll see later when we configure the hierarchy in the procurement and sourcing area how we actually then assign who the owner is. But this is just saying what the attribute is we want to use. And of course, I could go here, and we have within AX right now set up a whole bunch of different attributes for different types of products and different types of things. So this is an attribute list that applies both to products and categories, and you could pick and add them and add whatever attributes you might want to the category. All right. I can actually also tick so that, if I have a subcategory here, it inherits the one from the parent. Commodity codes. If your company uses commodity codes, you'll know. If you don't know what commodity codes are, it's because your company probably doesn't use them. But those are sort of, there's a number of sort of nationally defined commodity codes for defining goods and services, and you might want to add them here against the category. Okay. Category pages. If you wanted to have some sort of page that would tell the user something when they were either ordering that good both in the client or in EP, you can set up a little HTML page here. Like I've got one for my earth moving rental equipment. If I look at what I've written here, just, certification is required to operate equipment in this category. So it's whatever you sort of might want to alert a user about when they're ordering in that category. So you can easily just edit the HTML content. You could add another page here. I could just create the page and add whatever information I wanted to do. All right. And we'll show later where the user would actually see those. And then if you actually are going to be assigning products to your categories, and if you use projects at all in your company, then I would assign a project category to all of the categories. It will give you an error when you're trying to purchase with trying to create a purchase rec in the system and against a project, and you haven't assigned a category, and you have to come back in here and do it, and it's a right pain in the butt. So go ahead and do that just across the board, even if you think it's not a project kind of category. You never can tell. So that's kind of the basic of setting it up within the product information management. Up here at the top, that's where I would go ahead and bring them in maybe from one of those national standard lists I talked about. So if you wanted to import them from a file, you could import that and use pieces or parts of it as you wanted. All right. So that's basically how you build the structure. Now, having built my hierarchy, I needed to assign it to a type. I needed to say what kind of a hierarchy it is. So this is where you can see here I've assigned my procurement office supplies to the procurement category hierarchy. There can only be one procurement category hierarchy per legal entity. Okay, so I couldn't assign two different ones. So having done that, if we go back here, just looking at our slides. Where did our slides go? Of course, I'm in the client there. So right here, so this is the slide, so that's creating the hierarchy. We've done that. If I go down, now we're going to go ahead and configure it. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure that within the purchasing module. You know, it looks just like we had it set up before. So here's our hierarchy over on the left. If we set edit here, this brings us back to the form we were just in product information management, where you could edit the basic information of the hierarchy and the structure. We'll see a lot of this information here is grayed out because it was set up in the product information management section. But now we've got different fast tabs we can configure. This is where we could go ahead and add products. You can see here under like office machines, computers, I've got a lot of products added to the system. If you want to be purchasing some of your released products, you will have to assign them to a category. If you know, some companies, if you don't want to use all this procurement category stuff, I mean, you could have a category hierarchy that just had, you know, one entry that said materials, for example, and assign all your products to that. But you need to have products assigned to a procurement category in order to bring them into a purchase requisition. So I could go ahead in here and add the products I wanted to, just whatever products I wanted to add, just select them all in here and add them. Not that those make sense for my category computers, but you can see how easy it is just to add products. And then on a category basis, I can assign attributes to the products within this category. If I start here at my office machines level, I've defined for office machines that brand is one of the attributes. And I've set it as a required searchable and sortable attribute. And then lower down here in my subcategories, I've said not only do I want it to inherit the attribute from the parent, so you can see computers also has the brand attribute we set up for office machines, but I wanted to add some computer-specific attributes here. So I've added HDMI port, number of ports, and drive capacity, just and set some of them up as to be searchable, sortable, or required. Okay, and then these now, having set these up, any of these products now that I've put into this category in released products, I can define the number of HDMI ports, the drive capacity, the brand for each of these products. And if we have time, I'll show you really briefly how you do that. And like I said before, these now I can add these. If I use a procurement catalog, I can use HDMI port, drive capacity as filters in my catalog when people are searching for items. Vendors, so I can add my vendors here, all right? And if I want to, I can go ahead also and add what's called a vendor evaluation group, and that is that allows users to go ahead and evaluate vendors. So, for example, I've given this vendor, I've created this. You can see, I'll show you the criteria here. I've set up this evaluation group based on delivery, price, and quality. All right, and I've set that up separately. Don't have time really to show you how to set that up. It's pretty simple. Having set that up, now for each of these vendors, you can go in and make an evaluation. So for this vendor, I could go ahead and say their rating on price is good, their rating on quality is excellent, and the delivery is poor, for example. And you see I get an average rating for the vendor here. And this vendor rating then is actually viewable, again, in the enterprise portal. So what is that? All right, so that's assign the evaluation criteria if you want to use it, and then evaluate your vendors. Again, a lot of this is optional. If you want people to have to fill out a questionnaire, this questionnaire, if this questionnaire is in here, it becomes something somebody has to fill out before they can submit the purchase requisition to the workflow. So, for example, I've got a vendor evaluation questionnaire here. Questionnaires have a lot of different capabilities and features and ways in which you can configure them that we don't have time in this to go through. But if you do want to use questionnaires, this is where you assign it to the category. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So, carrying on. Where were we? Questionnaires. Okay, so you can also define the sales tax group to use for all the items in that category. And this is where, remember we set up a category attribute called owner previously for one of these. That was it here. So here in this section is where we would go ahead and say who the owner is. So I know I'm in here as Tim Litton, of course, Tim Litton. So, I say he's the owner. So having set that up in the product information management, now you define the values for it. And then this is that that category page I set up there. I just get the ability to view it here. It's just as an FYI. If I wanted to modify it, I'd have to go back and edit the hierarchy to modify that. And then similarly, the commodity codes, if I was using commodity codes and it set them up within product information management, this is where I would see them. Again, no ability to add or change them here. All right, so that's the configuration you can do to the extent you want to do it in the procurement and sourcing module for that. Close out of that, and then we will look back at our slide here. So this is what we just went through, all of these different bits and pieces of the configuration under procurement and sourcing. Next thing I'll go through is if you want to set up a catalog, you can do that. Catalogs can be kind of cool. They look quite interesting in an enterprise portal. They're actually configured not in setup, but here under common. Let's move that down. Procurement catalogs there. Okay. So when I create a new catalog, I can create a catalog here, and I can choose to populate it from the procurement category hierarchy and then modify accordingly, or I could have just unticked that and I could create it from scratch. I've got one here, of course, that I've already set up, and it was copied from the hierarchy. So here is my, you see this looks sort of the same. They use sort of slightly different icons. All right, and again, similar to how you configure it in the procurement and sourcing, I can now disable or enable the different categories. So this determines whether or not these categories are visible in Enterprise Portal. All right, and actually within one of the pages of purchase recs, when we make purchase recs, so you'll see how that comes through as well. So I can enable or disable the categories as I want. So over here, I've got various things I can set up about the catalog itself. Map text has to do with whether the text is coming through straight from the procurement category or whether you're putting in your own text. I can define whether the category updates dynamically or statically by me publishing it, or whether it just updates as and when you make changes. Right. If you have set up products, like we have for our office machines computers, here's where you see the products. You can see it shows that they came in from the category, so they're stuck in the category and can't be removed. They'd have to be removed back in the procurement category itself, but you can add some manually, and you see I've added one manually here, and that can be removed within the catalog itself. Right, press details, it just opens the product detail page itself, like you would see under release products. If I had assigned vendors, similarly you can see them and that they came from the procurement category. Again, I could add some if I wanted to on my own. You can also set up for this category, you can set up external catalogs. If you've got some external vendor catalogs that you use and you want your users to be able to link directly into those and maybe create a purchase requisition from those external catalogs, that's where you'd add the information for those external catalogs here. Now, I'll just digress a little bit here. So these are the 3 tabs that are visible in Enterprise Portal for a given category: products, vendors, and external catalogs. And right here, I've got my default browsing page. This is where I say, when you look at this page, this category in Enterprise Portal, which page is the one that's shown by default. So if you're talking about a page like computers where I have lots of products, likely you want to display the product page by default. If you're talking about something like Staples where I don't have any products, so I don't want to release products for Staples in my system, you would have it default maybe to the vendor page if people would just start ordering from a vendor. So you can, or if it was all external websites, pick that. And then here, remember we set up product attributes for computer. We had the HDMI port and we had drive capacity. So here, having set those up for computers, I could go ahead and add that. So I say, I'm going to go ahead and pick these two attributes that I want to be able to filter on. Okay, and I'll say for drive capacity, my unit of measure is gigabytes, and I will say, we can have a range of 0 to, 50, say, 50. I could add that, and then I could add a range that was maybe, 50, 51 to 100, whatever. Okay, so these will be filter ranges that somebody could do in Enterprise Portal. You can also do the kind of, something in below, whatever you want to do there. All right, give you some ability for the users to filter on things, and that ties back to your product attributes you set up. You can also, they also have a price range filter here. This isn't anything we've had to have set up anywhere else. It just is sort of standard by category. Every category has it, and you can go ahead and add in sort of range limits here for people to filter within this category on a given price range, and in the currency that you're currently set up for your legal entity as primary. All right, so that's how you kind of configure each category. Once you've done that, you go ahead and, my catalog is already activated, but you would activate the catalog and publish it. So I'm going to go ahead in case I had any changes. It's already an active catalog. You can see it's active here. But I could just, to make sure I had all my changes through, I'll go ahead and republish it out to the website. Catalog update is complete. All right. So I've done that. The final thing I'm going to do here under procurement and sourcing in terms of my catalog, it's because I have products in my catalog, is down here. There's this synchronized product search data. I run this little batch process, and you could have this run, nightly or something if you wanted to, and it goes ahead and just in the background make sure all the product data is up to date out in your catalog. All right, so I recommend you do that if you've got products set up within your categories. Right, so back to, let's see, let's go to here. So this is our catalog, doing all this, enable, disable, add or remove products and vendors, get into catalogs, activate and publish, synchronize our products. Okay, and then, like I said, if you wanted to control, before we get into purchasing policies themselves, if you want your control to be at a business unit, a cost center, a department level, you would need to set up an organizational hierarchy. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because they're a topic in and of themselves, but under organization administration, here we have organization hierarchies. Okay, so I've got one I set up called purchasing control, and if I view it here, I've set it up with a couple of 3 different departments, and then some cost centers under, I think they're cost centers, yep, cost center underneath that. Right, so you can set these up however you want, and having set this up, you see, double click that, I've assigned it a purpose called Procurement Internal Control, so that's how it ties into the purchasing policies. Now you don't have to have a lot of different organization hierarchies. You can have one that's your organization structure, for example. So I could have this, its purpose could be both organization structure and procurement internal control. So you don't have to have a lot of different hierarchies, but this allows you, if you wanted to have a structure for purchasing that's different than your way you've laid out your organization, you can do it specifically for that. But it just needs to make sure that that purpose is procurement internal control in order for it to be selectable in your purchasing policies. All right, so yeah, so like I said, hierarchy of multiple purposes. It could be both an org chart and a procurement internal control, but that's the key one for your policies. So now we're going to set up the policies, and that's, like I said, how you control who can do what. So that's back under procurement and sourcing. down here under setup are our purchasing policies. Okay, so if you were to do a new policy, so say you wanted to, I had that organization structure that I set up by department in the cost center. If I wanted to, what I would do here is I'd create a new policy and pick, so this is my purchasing control organization I set up. You see these are the ones, if you remember, these are the ones I've set up within that little hierarchy. And I can pick, say I want to have a specific control of people in the admin cost center of finance. So I would go ahead and put them in there. What I've been doing. There we go. So say these people, these two cost centers had a specific rules in which, that defined what they could and couldn't purchase. I'd put them in here and then go ahead and set the rules. So the rules I defined here at the bottom apply to whatever organizations or companies I've got selected up here. All right, so having done, administration and project ops, then I would have another policy that I would set up that would cover the people in procurement and IT, or, multiple policies for different parts of the organization. I'm going to get out of this one, though, just to show you what I've set up already. Retire that policy. Yeah. It automatically sets them to active, so you can retire them when you don't need them anymore. This is the one I've set up, and I've just set this one up for the entire company, like Contoso, Entertainment System USA, and then the policies below. So there are 3 policies that apply when you're talking about procurement. Well, the procurement categories and potentially the catalog. If you decided to use a catalog, and we've set up a catalog, you have to do the catalog policy rule, and that's a very simple one, and all it is picking the catalog, saying, this is the catalog I'm using, and it just basically activates that catalog. I've got it set up here with an expiration of never. Okay. Next thing you do, this is the more complicated one. This is the category access. So it defines who can access the different parts of the category. And every time you change it, it goes ahead and retires the previous one. You can see I've done a number here recently. Retires the previous one and creates a new one. So if I double click to look at this, here is my hierarchy again, becoming quite familiar with this. If I open this up, this is where I select what categories people can purchase from. So this is for my entire USMF organization, and I go ahead and select what categories they can purchase from. So if I say equipment rentals, it only picked, well, it picked equipment rentals and the top one because I didn't have the subcategory tick. If I tick that and put equipment rentals, equipment rentals in again. Moving slowly. Let's try out. There we go. It's brought all the subcategories in. Okay. Now, what's interesting to note, it can get a bit confusing because we set up that catalog and we have defined things in the catalog, for example, that were and weren't active. Now that defines sort of how the structure shows, but you may have something set up in your catalog was active. So say I had office machines and it was active in my catalog. When somebody looked at it in Enterprise Portal, they would see office machines. But because this isn't selected in the policies, they wouldn't have any products or any vendors visible. So they could see the hierarchy, the structure, and they could see office machines, and they could see maybe all these subcategories. But there wouldn't be anything for them to select and, at a lower level unless I go ahead and make sure in my policy that that category is activated. All right, so you've got kind of these things have to work together in 2 parts in order for people to be able to purchase within those categories. So I've set up a number of different bits and pieces here that I want people to be able to purchase from. I'm going to say that people can't purchase from the other ones, so I'll leave those out of my list. And you can see it's gone ahead and created a new one just now and retired the old one. Okay. The final one is the category policy rule. This one doesn't just, you can't open it and edit it and make a new one. So if I want to make a new one, I'm going to go ahead and retire that policy in order to create a new one. This one works a little slightly differently than the other. So what I would do here is I would add a category, for example, crane rental, and I would say whether the users can. So here, this is that user control of vendors that I talked about. So when we defined, we put vendors into this category. I think I forgot to show you, but you could assign them a status of preferred or approved. There's only two statuses, preferred or approved. So I can limit here the users to pick vendors that are preferred. They can be preferred or approved. No vendors, so people can't pick a vendor at all for that category, or they can pick from all vendors, even the ones that aren't assigned to this category. So this is where, on a category by category basis, you can set up who has access to which of the vendors. If you've got questionnaires set up, you can define here whether or not the questionnaires are visible. You can define your policy matching and some things about whether the system is checking quantities on receiving and deducting goods from this category. Also on whether you want to accrue the purchase expense on receipt rather than when the vendor invoice comes in. So these are all the different bits and pieces you've got here. I'm going to go ahead and set a couple of these up just so you can see them a bit later. Let me just set. Yes, use the current date and time. So I'll set another one up here for office machines really quick. I'll say toners. I'll say vendor selection. Add another one and say computers. Let's see, photocopiers only allows ones that are preferred. Okay, so just a couple different things set up there so we can see how that plays out later. All right. So those are our three policies that we would set up that have to do with controlling things via procurement categories. So I'll close my policies down. I'm done with my policies. You see there's a lot of different things you can set up. Again, not everything's required. Okay, so that's what I've set up in my purchasing policies. And then the final thing is posting profiles. I will admit not to being a finance person, so we'll just briefly touch on this. Posting profiles are set up under inventory management, actually. Down here under the posting section under setup, you can open the posting profile setup, and under purchase order, you can see down here you have, if you select the category, you've got table group and all in the item code, you can select, for example, where the purchase expenditure for expense by category, what the GL account is going to get posted to. So if you want to sort of post your costs by category, this area in here is where you would select the different types of events and define the categories and where they get posted to. All right. So looking back at our setup, I believe that is all there is setting up to the procurement categories. I will just really briefly show you, in case you want to know, we talked about those attributes, those product attributes that we defined for categories. So in your released products, so remember I had a lot of these computers, I gave the attributes of HDMI and drive capacity. I go to my released products, here's where I then actually define the values for those things. So if this computer has a drive capacity of 80 gigabytes, I define it there, and number of HDMI ports and things like that. So having given the product an attribute within that category, they are set up here, defined for each product under product attributes in your released products. Right? Okay, I know we're going fast, but it's a lot to cover. So purchase requisitions. We're going to move on to purchase requisitions and all that stuff we set up. We'll see how it all comes together here once we start making purchase requisitions. Some of the things about purchase requisitions. Okay, so you can do them within the client or employee services, and when you do them in employee services, you've got two options. You can either do them from a catalog viewpoint if you want to have all that searching and filtering and looking at products with pictures and things, or you can do it in a form that looks almost exactly like what you see in the client. So you've got a couple of options in employee services. And of course, if you've got some users who may only have the self-service license, which is the most inexpensive license that you can get from Microsoft, then being able to let them raise purchase requisitions from the enterprise portal can be a really useful feature. You can create purchase requisitions inside a project, or outside a project, or outside a project and assign a project. Like we talked about, you can purchase the products that we've assigned to the category, or you can just purchase against the procurement category itself and write in what it is you want to buy. If you set up the permissions properly, you can request purchases for others. You can set up, now a purchase requisition has to have a workflow in order for it to be processed, but you can do that either at the purchase requisition header level or at the line level. It's up to you how you want to set that up. And then you can do, there's a couple more bits and pieces of purchasing policy that you can set up for controlling a purchase requisition. Okay, so these are the three things that need to be set up about purchase requisitions, and I don't have an arrow here. You can set these up in any order you choose. So we'll carry on and set these up. I know I'm running out of time. I hope you guys are not running off to a meeting. Okay, so the first thing is setting up the, what did I say I was setting up? Sorry. Yeah, the purchasing policies, right back where we were before, procurement and sourcing, purchasing policies, right. So back to the one I set up before. Well, there's just one set here, the purchase requisition control rule. And this is where, again, I don't right now have edit capability because I haven't retired this policy, but you can define here, for example, these are a number of fields that show up on the lines of the purchase requisition. If you want to make sure that some of these are filled in before the user submits it to workflow, you can define that it's required, not required, or even conditionally required. So maybe based upon a certain amount, maybe you have to have a reason if the purchase requisition line is over a certain amount. So you've got capability here to define on these fields if they have to be filled in. For release products, you can set up min, max, and multiple order quantity restrictions in the default order settings of a release product. This defines whether or not you enforce them in your purchase rec. There's a couple of dates the purchase requisition has. One is the requested date, one's the accounting date, but you can display only one field and automatically set the accounting date to be the requested date if you tick this box. Save the users having, an extra box to fill in. And if you want your users to be able to put a new delivery address in rather than it just defaulting to being, your warehouse or site, then you can tick that box and they can enter a different delivery address, which can be useful, of course, if they want it to be delivered to maybe to a customer or to some other site that something's happening at. So that's just the purchasing. That's the purchasing policies for purchase requisitions, and those aren't required. You don't have to do those if you don't want to. Set them up if you want to. Okay. Permissions, purchase permissions. If you want somebody to be able to purchase things on behalf of somebody else, that's here in purchase procurement and sourcing as well. Purchase rep permissions right here. Okay, so if you want to, for example, I've got Luke Lenhart here, and he can prepare a purchase rep, but the requester could be for TAG. Okay, so you can set that up so that somebody, maybe an admin person in a group, could request things on behalf of other people within the group. You can also look at it in terms of the requester and maybe let them request within other legal entities or operating units. So you got some flexibility there. Again, you don't have to do that, in which case you can only request on your own behalf. All right, so that's that. The other thing, when I selected that Luke could, create them on behalf of somebody else, you could either do it for just that person or anybody in that person's reporting chain. The workflows, again, we can't really go, into building workflows because that's quite, a daunting task in and of its own self. But under procurement and sourcing, if we just look really quick here at, not the parameters, close the parameters. Look at the workflows. Again, you can set them up either at the purchase requisition level or at the line level. Okay, you've got some interesting capabilities within the workflow too to go ahead and to send the workflow, send the purchase rec or the purchase requisition lines. If you're using projects, you can send it to maybe the project manager or project controller or sales manager who's assigned to that project, or to, if you're not using projects, you can also have those lines be routed to the people who are responsible for different financial dimensions. So you can use financial dimensions. You set that up within purchase requisition expenditure reviewers and control your workflow in that regard. That gives you some really useful capabilities there. I've talked a little bit more about it in this slide. So, okay, so creating a purchase requisition finally after all that time. What we'll do here, so procurement and sourcing, most people when you start their security roles don't have a view of all purchase requisitions, so most people would they would go into purchase requisitions prepared by me, and they would see their purchase requisitions they've created and can go ahead and do a new one. We do new purchase rec. These are those 2 dates I talked to you about. You got a name field to fill out. A lot of people think that's your name. It's actually the name of the purchase rec, just some sort of handy-dandy title to you were buying. And if you want to assign a project, you define your legal entity and pick which project is applicable to. Okay. I've got some I've set up here already. I'm Tim Litton, as I said. So I've gone ahead and created one here. You can create, you add your purchase requisition lines in 2 ways. You can either add the line, or I think it's pretty useful, this add items, and this brings up a box where you can pick the catalog items. You can see here I've got everything, all the different products across all the categories that I assigned. So these are both from the computer category and photocopiers, office machines. So I've got every product in my procurement hierarchy. I can search for things that I want here. I can select multiple things, put them down here. I can also then go and select non-catalog items. So this is, if you don't want to order a product, say I just want to go ahead and order some sort of intercompany resource. I say, some resource, and I'll say it's a unit of each one. Say my price is something, $44, and I can select that and add that. So this is where I talked about, you can order something that isn't an item. This would be something not tracked, not traced, obviously not part of your production cycle. So I say OK. Okay, 1507. Some of these need to be configured, so I have to do that. And somebody probably doesn't have a color. Okay, so that one has to be configured as well. So configure the color. See if it'll go in. Yeah, there we go. So those lines are now added. Okay. Some of the things we set up in our catalog. If I look at category guidelines, you can see here. This is where I see my little informational category page I set up. Create selection must be signed off. So that's useful information for your user. It also then gives them the vendors that are approved for this category. Depending upon how you've got it set up, if I select .line, excuse me, I didn't want to use a hyperlink, and I look at my category guidelines, I see, because I went ahead in my policy, if you'll recall, and I allowed vendors both approved and preferred to be picked for this category, I've got both approved and preferred vendors. And over here to the right, it's not going to let me now. You have to do that right when you add a line. So I can add a line here to the, I can add another, add that. Go over here and you can see. Okay, well, I'm getting myself in the middle there. But okay, so this is where the vendors are limited by the category you've set up. All right. And if the other thing you'll see, I'll try and submit this. I have to set up a color on one of that one, which I don't want to do, so I'm just going to remove that. Did you see? Remember I set up some questionnaires earlier. You can see that it's telling me I have to go ahead and complete the questionnaire. So, and you can tell, and I missed a unit price in one of them, and I had that purchase rate policy that said a unit price must be filled in. So it's telling me I can't do that either. If you have a questionnaire set up, then those are visible in the details of the form down here you see your questionnaire, and the user could go ahead and complete the questionnaire there. All right. Okay, so once you've answered all that, you've made sure everything's filled out properly, you submit it, and it goes off to your workflow. All right. Appreciate you bearing with me. I know I'm running a little late, but I wanted to show you the same sort of thing here in the Enterprise Portal. I'm here in the Employee Services part of Enterprise Portal, and if I go to the Order Products, here's where you see the same sort of purchase requisitions prepared by me, and I could go into there and I could fill out a purchase rec in pretty much exactly the same fashion I just did in the client. But the Order Products is where our catalog comes into play. If I select that, you can see our hierarchy here, and this is where our hierarchy, our catalog is all set up with our friendly names and the different categories, and we see that they come up. For example, like I showed you, this is the default page. Vendors comes up for some of these, and under computers, my default page products is going to be displayed here, and so you get little pictures, you get lots of text and the prices and things like that. You can see as I select each one of these are my attributes that I've set up. If I've configured my attributes for the product, I've got them. You can see them displayed over here on the right. HDMI ports, our drive capacity, and I scroll down here where those filters I set up both on price range and drive capacity. So I could filter on a price range here. It filters down my list. So to make a purchase requisition from this catalog, you just go ahead and add things to your cart, like you would on any sort of an internet website. This is where I can configure my color, add it to the cart, and then you see my cart's added with things. Okay, so you just build up. You're basically building up a purchase requisition by picking items here within your little catalog. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and go to your cart, and you can go ahead and check out your order. And then you can see here, this is sort of like some of the header information of a purchase requisition, and you can go ahead and select your reason, put your details, select a project if applicable, and go ahead and proceed through. Make sure everything's great before you're done, and this is where you submit it to workflow. So it's a nice way to give users a visual look at your catalog, especially if you have a lot of products that you might want to give them access to, and then they can just build their purchase requisition behind the scenes. All right, I know I've whizzed through that last bit of the purchase requisition stuff, but I think a lot of people are kind of familiar with the basic capabilities of purchase requisitions. It's something that a lot of companies use, and hopefully, hopefully that wasn't too fast for you. I think I'm going to stop it there before I'm going to cancel my checkout, exit the wizard there, and return to our slides. All right, so those are the purchase requisitions, and then finally, into submitting it to workflow. All right. So, in a whirlwind tour.
Good, great. Thanks, Laura. Just a couple more things. So thank you all for joining. There are a couple of next steps depending on what you're trying to achieve as a business that we can offer. The first is we're looking to do a procurement masterclass. If you look at the URL there, you can sign up for interest. We don't have a date right now. We're trying to gauge interest first, and I'll go a little bit more into what that agenda is next. For companies out there, we do have a couple other offerings. One is a project audit. So this is useful for things like recovery projects. You need help in a certain area if you're implementing AX. You can see our website and see the offering there. We also have an upgrade proof of concept so for those of you who are not on the latest version of AX and you're looking to upgrade, we offer some proof of concept type packages where we go in and help you understand some of the benefits you're going to get out of the latest version of AX in whatever areas are applicable to you. And the last thing we have is a supply chain health check. So looking at some of the procurement areas, also some of the customer service areas, or where you need help, and just giving you a little bit of an assessment of some of the opportunities that you might have out there that you haven't thought about with AX. So please look at our website. On the Procurement Masterclass, you can kind of see some of the topics that we're looking to go into here. It'll be a lot of great content. We will pull in some of the third-party products that we've used elsewhere, especially around like the invoice scanning and some of the automated processes, just to give you a feel for what other companies are doing out there. But again, if you're interested, please go to the URL above, ebex.com/purchase to pay, and sign up if you're interested. Other than that, thank you guys for joining. If you have any questions, you can always send them to myself. I don't think we have time right now to open it up to questions, and I think we've hit all the ones that were monitored in the website. But if you have anything that you think of, feel free to email myself at Charlotte McCormick, cmccormick@ebex.com. And again, thank you all for joining.
Thanks.